would you like to jump in by unmuting yourself?
Yes, wow, I feel honored 2 weeks in a row that I've got to ask a question. Um, my question is I came across an article about using horseshoe crab blood for trying to find a vaccine for COVID 19 and kind of what y'all were talking about as far as like over extracting things and how do you find the balance because us as humans are pushing these animals out of their habitats, which are coming in contact with us, and how we get COVID 19, but then we use these animals to try to cure it as well. How do we find a balance where we're not over extracting these resources to help cure something that we could avoid in the first place?
Oh, you're strumming my heartstrings now. It was on the New Jersey shore when I was a little kid that I fell in love with horseshoe crabs. They're just the most amazing animals, and if anyone listening has never seen one, check them out. They are in a group of animals. There are only 4 species in an entire class of organisms. They're not related closely to crabs at all. They're more closely related to spiders, curiously, but they don't look anything like a spider. They look like a horseshoe crab. There's nothing else that looks quite like a horseshoe crab. And they go back at least 300 million years. They were around before dinosaurs. We should look at them not as products, not as some. There are 3 species in Asian waters that are taken to market for food. I've never seen one in a U.S. market for dining purposes. They're taken for 2 reasons. One, to use as bait, because the eggs of the females are used to capture eels, which should also be left alone right now. Their numbers are so low. But the other is to extract their blood for testing. But the good news is there is a synthetic version of the active ingredient in horseshoe crab blood that it does what is needed to conduct these tests. And if industry would really invest more in the large-scale production of the synthetic version and just leave the horseshoe crabs in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's for their sake, of course, but they're part of an ecosystem. It's one that has grown up literally over millions of years, that involves the time when the horseshoe crab is coming ashore, which is right about now, along the Jersey Shore, up and down the eastern seaboard, down to Florida, parts of the Caribbean, where the females with their tag-along partners come ashore and deposit these beautiful jade green eggs. They're just amazing. And they come on the high tide, and then they sit in the sand and mature until the next high tide, next high tide, about 2 weeks later.
Right.
And these tiny little horseshoe crabs go swimming off into the ocean. But they're also food for migrating birds that come through these long migrations from South America, and some even from Antarctica.
Yeah.
They come all the way up, stopping along the eastern seaboard, gorging themselves on the eggs, leaving enough so there are more horseshoe crabs in the future. They don't eat them all. I think that's the thing. There's no excess for humans who are newcomers. These ancient rhythms have been worked out between the birds and the crabs. There's a system that somehow has functioned for long before humans came as predators on top of the system. But in large measure because of habitat destruction, but secondly because of human predation, horseshoe crabs in 2020 are a fraction of what they were in the beginning of the 20th century when I was a kid, or my dad was born in 1900. His recollection of horseshoe crabs when he was a boy along the New Jersey shore is nothing like even what we sometimes see, like an avalanche of horseshoe crabs coming ashore, and but it's just like I don't know, just a small wave instead of a.
Right, and even the populations of the red knots that used to just come and really darken the sky at one point, and now we feel lucky
They're
to
starving.
we see them along the shoreline again coming for the eggs, but they're just a fraction of the numbers that they used to be.
That's right.
And so I mean, it's one of these things where sure, we find out that the horseshoe crab, the beautiful blue blood of the horseshoe crab, has
The unique blue blood.
unique blue blood.
Well, they're unique animals.
But that does have an important use to us in proving vaccines, and it's not just the COVID-19 vaccine, but they've been used in vaccine
in testing.
In testing for many years.
Mhm.
But when we find something like that from nature,
Don't kill them.
don't kill them. Don't. And again, having technology companies that work to rapidly synthesize something that can be used based on nature.
We know how to do it.
Look at aspirin, for example. Aspirin, right? It originally came from the bark of willow trees.
Right.
But we're not going out there and cutting down every single willow tree, and
Every time you get a headache.
to crush out the elements from it to make aspirin, right? So
Yeah.
it's we can take things from nature, but we have to care for nature.
What's your thought about that, April?
My thought is, I mean, I didn't know that they could. Well, I knew about the aspirin thing, the willow trees, but I didn't know that you could synthesize or create, replicate horseshoe crab blood. So I just didn't know if there was some way to. I don't know, like find another way, because I know that they're, like you said, they're 300 million years old, and that's something that we don't want to go extinct. And I've before COVID-19, I've seen articles and stories about horseshoe crabs, being extracted, their half of their blood being drained for research, and then they're thrown back into the ocean, and they sometimes slowly die, and
Yeah, I mean,
It's not a recipe for
what
prosperity, for sure.
what other animal out there would we like suck half its blood away
yeah,
and then sort of stick it back out in the environment and go, see you, hope you're okay,
yeah.
Good luck with that. It's
No.
like catch and release. We think it's, the responsible thing to do, but the responsible thing to do is not hook them in the first place. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you're,
unless
if
you
it's
have a
your-
real need.
Yeah.
source of true
True food.
sustenance.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, right. And so if there's any other questions out there, anyone else would like to speak directly to Sylvia and Liz, just raise your hand by finding the button in the middle of the bottom screen, and we'll call on you. So please feel free to do so.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. We've got a couple we're waiting to see if other people raise their hand. We've got a couple of other questions that come in.